End of the Spider-Verse feels like the final crisis of this trilogy, a sequel with only tangential connections to the others after the direct sequel we got last time. The premise this time is that Shathra has returned. You remember her, right? From that one story? No? Me either. But she's infecting spider people and turning them into her hive mind bug person minions, or erasing them from reality entirely with a magic dagger. Morlun is on Team Spidey now after the infected Spider-Man ate his infantized family, which is a super ironic detail that doesn't get a lot of focus. I guess because babies being eaten is really fucking morbid, and I don't know why they included such a detail. But it's just a new multiversal Spidey story without much connection to the previous two events beyond the secret lore you didn't know before type additions. The concept feels like a more extreme version of spider-geddon. The Civil War angle has been taken to a new level, with basically every surviving non-616 Spidey being turned into Shathra's minions that the immune 616ers and the new cast will have to fight against. Sadly, without their personalities and with how many of them there are, there's no room for any interesting conflict between the two sides until they get freed at the very end and can discuss it for all of one panel. And on that note, this one is even more focused on lesser known since it fills out the heroic group's numbers with obscure or brand new Spideys who honestly aren't all that interesting. We have the obligatory new other character is a spider person here types like Gwen or Norman, Kraven and Black Cat in this case, and then we have a Disney princess and a couple of very minor characters from the original Spider-Verse. You know, the kind of thing you'd normally see in the background because they're too generic or gimmicky to be real characters. And the story doesn't do enough to elevate them beyond that. To have this as a sequel to Spider-Verse and Spider-Geddon, but barely feature the characters that were central to those narratives, it leaves this finale feeling rather disconnected and unsatisfying, but hey, at least we get a Madam Web playing a big role in a comic Spider-Verse this time, given how she set up both predecessors to Spider-Verse. Miles gets to have an interesting role since he's equally from Earth 616 and 1610, so he can resist the transformation enough to go and be a distraction for the team. But that doesn't amount to much, nor does the idea of Spideys that are immune like Renew Your Vows MJ or the Car Spidey. Nor does Peter Palmer from the prototype 616 showing up after 616 Peter Parker is erased. Nor does MCU adjacent Peter who gets a few dedicated pages before being infected off screen. Really, this whole story feels like Marvel wanted a Spider-Verse event to coincide with Across the Spider-Verse, but no one had a solid enough idea to justify it. So many plot points introduced that amount to little, and all to set up Silk as the new chosen one of the Spider-Verse in the vain hopes that someone on Earth will actually care about her proposed movie, I guess. Honestly, I found the most interesting part of the story to be the issue in the middle, after 616 Peter is erased. We see the alternate history where he was never bitten, making Silk the primary spider of 616, and Peter goes down the path of a scientist and Silk's main supporter after taking a bullet for his aunt and uncle. That works as a solid, self-contained AU story, and I think we could use more of those. Maybe a Tales from the Spider-Verse book that's basically What If with all Spideys, but without every issue being a wasteful tragedy because these Spideys can then be used in the inevitable Spider-Verse 4. Still, at least this event didn't force you to read a bunch of tie-ins to get a complete story. It's at least structured competently, unlike most event comics these days, so it has that going for it at least. It's a shame we have to end Until the Spider-Verse on such a low note with what, to me, feels like the least necessary Spider-Verse story ever, but this is not the end of such stories. Even with the likes of Venomverse, Gwenverse, or that weird thing where Miles was every other hero and Asgard was his hood by Odin's Fade, Spider-Verse still feels like a pretty unique concept that can still create a lot of interesting stories. And not just because every bloody cartoon of his gets cancelled, and a crossover to tie up those loose ends may have a shot if X-Men 97 does well. Spider-Man is such a versatile character that you can create all sorts of new versions of him, from different people taking the role to different settings and power sets. I'd argue more so than possibly any other character in comics, considering how underwhelming or lame events like Venomverse, Gwenverse, and Dark Knight's Metal are. Hopefully the next plot will be a bit more inspired and finally stop trying to make Morlun a thing. I appreciate taking one of Spidey's most controversial stories of its time and creating something out of it instead of just pretending it never happened, but he's just not that interesting, guys. Let it go. Thanks for tuning in to Until the Spider-Verse. I'd like to thank Xavier, Diego and Josh for their help in covering all of this, and for making 2/3 of this event actually pleasant to listen to while I died of lurgy. Genuinely could not have done it without you fellas. If you've gotten this far and still not seen all of their contributions, then you are a damn fool with about as much riz as Miles has in this story. Get on it. If you liked this video, why not subscribe and support me on Patreon like these fine people here? If not, then make sure to share it with your enemies so they can suffer along with you. Today's recommended video is A Day in the Life of Spider-Man by Diego Rivera. Slightly less obvious reason than the other two, but like, so what, you got a problem? Bitch.